I feel like I've opened under the gun a lot here, but another hand to open with the gun, so.
30.
Hello. All right. By far the best hand we've had. We've 3-bet Trevor a bunch before, and have definitely shown 3-betting super light. So if we're gonna 3-bet 10-9 suited, we're 3-betting kings. So we're going to 100. 100.
100.
First thought is I feel like he has a bit of a stronger hand than he's had in previous spots like this, but my hand's too good to fold, so we're going to be seeing a flop.
Check.
All right. Pretty much always expecting him to be calling when he does raise under the gun, and I don't think they're opening as wide as I am, and they're probably going to be defending often. So here, just going to be betting for value. I mean, obviously just praying he has a hand like ace-queen here, but we're just going to continue with our normal 1/3 sizing. Could maybe just go a little bit smaller given it's a paired board, but 1/3's been the number we've been consistent with, so we're going to continue with that to 70. Yeah, 70.
On paper, this looks like a similar spot to the other one where I had ace-jack and he 3-bet me on the button, but I feel like he has a bit of a stronger hand this time, and so I'm actually just going to fold in this spot here, even though it's pretty similar. Could be wrong, but it just feels like the right thing to do.
Feels suited, I'd open. This is a fold.
Facing button open with my hand, I can 3-bet this hand some of the time and call the rest of the time. I'm going to go with call this time.
Not loving this one, considering I don't have a diamond in my hand, but I think there's a fair amount of check folds in his range here, and we have some backdoor possibilities. We can even make a pair to have the best hand here, so let's just throw out a bet and hope for a fold. If it doesn't happen, good things can still happen on the turn.
30.
Obviously a great flop for my hand. I'm not going to have too many check raise bluffs on this board. Mostly just king of diamonds, ace of diamonds type hands, obviously without having flush. So this is going to be a hand that I start with a check call, and then we're going to go from there.
Definitely not going to be bluffing this card as the top card pairs. The absolute value of his hand has not changed at all. So I'm just going to check this one back, see what happens on the river.
So when he checks back turn, he either has hands that he's just giving up with, or he has hands that have showdown value. When I do check call flop, I will have lots of hands that need to bluff river pretty big here. So my sizing is going to be very large going with the bluff here. So it'll be an overbet spot for me, because I'm targeting, when I'm bluffing, I'm going to have to bet pretty big. And when I'm trying to get value like I have here, then I'm going to be trying to go for the most value and put those hands that have showdown value in a tough spot.
225.
Damn, $225, huh? I mean, my hand is so bad, but this makes his hand really polarized. Now he's saying that he has a queen or flush. It's just not worth it. I definitely think that he could show up with like 6 high here as well. He definitely would not make this bet with the ace of diamonds in his hand, so we can rule that out. He would not make this bet with an 8 in his hand either, or a 3 or a 4. So basically I'm bluff catching, but the price is so bad. $225 into $125. I mean, what? He's really another chance to own me here. My hand's just too bad. What's crazy is that my hand is, it's in a binary sense, he's either bluffing and my hand's good or it's not, but so I guess the value of my hand isn't too bad. King high is pretty good here. Man, Trevor, you're a savage, man. I think I'm just gonna have to fold because of the price. It's a good one, man, good one.
Same old story, going to be opening this, and might not be folding 2 or 3 bet depending on where it comes from.
30.
So this is third straight open. Not that I don't think it means too much. I just have a hand that I think I want to just flat with. I can 3-bet it for something at the time, but I'm going to flat this time.
All right, well, another hand, another fun spot to be in out of position, but cutoff open, I think this is just gonna be, I've seen, actually, recently I played the guy live and we're playing forehand and he flatted 10s in position though, but out of position I think it's just the mandatory 3-bet, so 30-30, we'll just go 5x to 150.
Alright, so pretty easy 4-bet here, I think. Rampage has been doing mostly flatting in the small blind, so it does make me think that his 3-bet is a bit stronger, but I don't really think we're going to ever be flatting here. Pretty much be 4-betting or folding, and with jacks, I just think it's a pretty layup. If we get 5-bet shoved on, I'm not going to be happy, but we're going to just 4 and go from there. As far as sizing, I'm just going to go 500 and then go from there.
500.
All right, so we were probably not going to fold to 3-bet, but to the cold 4, we don't really have a choice here. It's a little tempting to just kind of screw around here and go for it, but I don't think this is the hand to do it with. Both hands with better equity, and especially when it's a cold 4, not, you know, somebody 4-betting after opening. I think that we have to lend a little more credence to the idea that this is just a big hand, so we're gonna fold.
All right, back at it again. Alrighty. Just one of the horrible issues when we face when we 3-bet in the small blind is facing a 4-bet. So like I feel like maybe I'm getting PTSD from that last jacks hand, but I feel like small blind 3 or 4-bets should be perceived as super strong. And with her just sizing up so much to 500, she seems like a spot she wants to get stacks in, or at least maybe incentivize a fold. So I mean, the large sizing definitely, makes me think and lean more towards some sort of ace-king, ace-queen holding. The issue is that I'm just kind of hoping for that, and 10s facing a 4-bet out of position. I feel like this is a fold. I'm probably wrong, but that's what my gut's telling me right now when I face a 4-bet and we're out of position. So folding's certainly boring, but right now I think we just kind of have to let it go, but hopefully we're right. Nice hand.
I mean, I think the tens fold is like, honestly, like, obviously knowing what I had, it's a good fold. I think it's on the tight side. I think it also has something to do with the fact that Ethan was just getting 3-bet a lot. A lot of people, when they're in a spot where they just keep getting 3 and 4-bet free, they either lean tight or they lean loose, obviously. And I think he just leans tight. I think the Jack's 4-bet is like a pretty standard. I don't think I'm ever flatting in that spot. And like I said, I knew that Ethan kind of had a stronger range because he was flatting a lot in the small blind, but Jax was just like A, too good, and B, like too vulnerable to flat. So
it's a fold.
Gonna open this one on the button. I think it's fine.
All right, so we've been pretty tight in this dynamic so far, with Johnny opening the button and us being the small blind. I think this hand is kind of teetering in pretty much every direction, but I kind of like 3-betting here and just applying a little pressure in a spot that we haven't been too active yet. Obviously, he should have a wide range on the button, and while Trevor, is obviously capable of kind of going after us here, I still don't think he's going absolutely nuts right now, unless he's bored. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to go 150.
150?
I expect Matt to have a very linear range here, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to defend with this hand. I want to have something better to go to war with him. Just inside our opening range.
30.
Come on. Nice. Yeah, we're just gonna defend here. I think that this hand, it might do it a little bit, but not very much, just because it's tough to play versus 4-bets, and it's very easy to keep his range wider, as well as play post-flop 200 big blinds deep with a hand that wants to make the nuts, because getting 4-bet isn't really the greatest prospect with a hand like this, especially out of position. It just gets pretty tough. I'm just checking my entire range here.
Pretty decent flop for our exact hand. Good flop for our range too. I like holding the Queen of Hearts here. Gonna lean towards checking this one and perhaps giving Landon a chance to catch something on the turn, and perhaps bet on the turn, but we'll definitely be calling a bet on the turn. And not too worried about the turn card since we do hold the Queen of Hearts, so we're gonna go ahead and check back and see a turn.
Okay, when he checks back the flop, his range is going to look a lot like smaller pairs in the board, as well as some hands that have some showdown value but don't really feel the need to bet. And hands like that would probably contain a 7 in them. Our hand here is obviously one drawing to a very strong hand, and blocking ace-king doesn't really matter when most of the time it's going to be betting the flop. I think on this turn, I am going to have a lot of bluffs that are going to want to bet a very large size to maximize fold equity. And this hand's kind of cool because you can't really go wrong. Just because we're drawing to an overcard or drawing to the nut flush, we are really deep behind, that we are trying to get some money into the pot here. That you can kind of do a bunch of different things in betting small, betting pretty big, checking to check raise is a bluff of sorts to where you're drawing to obviously a very strong hand and getting more money and facing a bet. But I think in this case, I kind of want to just use my entire, like, I'm just going to leverage kind of my image in a little bit. Just by, like, I'm going to have hands like Jack 10 with a heart. I'm going to have 6-5 suited. I'm going to have hands with other gutters and a heart. So here, I got drawing to the nuts. I'm going to go for an overbet. There's about 65 in the pot. So I'm going to bet pretty big here. I'm going to go like 2x pot. So like 120. And I would do this with sets, 2 pairs, and vulnerable hands.
120.
Wow, it's almost as if he could hear me on the flop. This is a very peculiar sizing. He obviously knows that I have some sort of hand that has showdown value on the flop, and I'm checking back. This would definitely be some kind of a hero fold here. What would he use this sizing with? I guess he probably has some sort of equity to use the sizing. Could definitely have ace high hearts. He could have a 2-pair hand like king 3 of spades, something like that. I just don't know why he would use this sizing when it's clear that I don't have a super high value hand, because I capped myself by checking back the turn on a 2-heart board. Pretty dynamic board to check back, so I'm just gonna hero call this one and perhaps hero call the turn too. Obviously now I don't love having the queen of hearts, but we're gonna call and see what happens on the turn. Unfortunately, the problem is that I'm capped here and he knows that I'm capped, so he could be using that to his advantage. So.
Well, that's the right color, wrong shape. So in a spot like this with ace high, we have a lot worse hands who want to bluff in our overall range. This is kind of one of those hands where when we do choose this size, we're going to try to use it to polarize, and obviously rep what we have, which would be the nut flush if that was the jack of hearts. So in this spot we have a pretty easy check and then fold to a bet, and I'm going to have a lot lower valued showdown hands that I'm going to want to bluff on this river, and most of them would want to contain a 10 in them just because you block both straights, and you probably don't want the 10 of hearts because we want him to be drawing with a hand like ace 10 with the 10 of hearts when he calls a 2x pot bet on the turn. So we're just going to check here and wave the white flag. We did our best. We tried to hit big and we didn't do it. So we're just going to check here.
More than happy to check this one back and just hope that he gave up with hearts, or he may have gotten showdown value with a hand like Jack 10, so which we can beat but not necessarily squeeze value out of after his turn sizing. So let's check this one. Oh, I'm sorry. I was like, I thought my hand was face up.
Oh, the guy won? Wow.
Well, because I said what I had out loud, so it was like,
Oh, really?
you know, like I'm like,
That would have been such a situation.
like in my mind, I'm like, everybody knows what I had because I just said what I had. It's like so weird. I did not mean to like.
I would have passed the pot the other way.
You were starting to pass the pot too.
I knew what I had to do, man. You gotta show your hand to win.
It's like, well, damn, I'm just the best, huh?
All right, pretty much the same thing I said last time I had this exact hand in this exact position. So let's do it again.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty easy 3-bet. I think this hand with no rake might actually mix in some calls in this spot. However, Matt's kind of shown that he has a tendency to play a little bit too many hands. So this hand's just going to go from like a mixed call / 3-bet to a pure 3-bet. and it might just be a pure 3-bet anyways. So he makes it 30. I'm gonna go 150 again just because we're pretty deep, and yeah, not much to be said besides that. At least not at this point.
150.
Oh boy. All right, well, I originally really like 3-betting these suited connectors, and especially lower ones here, but now we have Landon doing it. This is something, I mean, cold calling 3-bets, even though we're in position, just usually is like a recipe for disaster. And I mean, given I had every intentions of 3-betting this is something I kind of want to experiment with, and I don't know if it's the best scenario to experiment with this, but we could definitely be 4-betting this. I did this once and it ended up horribly for me in a previous experiment, but maybe we can try this again. At least we're in position of Landon this time, that's 3-betting, and we can probably just fold out a lot of Matt's bottom of cutoff opening range trash hands. So now we have to figure out the sizing and see how deep we are, because we're about 2K deep, and that's a pretty large 3-bet 5x. So do we really want to go for it? I think it's worth an experiment. So let's go, we're in position, 4-bet, sizing, which will probably just be like 400, leaving ourselves with 1600 behind. Then if he calls the 4-bet SPR of 2-1, not amazing, but we're just gonna go for it.
$400.
So I do think there's a very non-zero chance that Ethan is kind of messing around here, but Landon has seemed to stay pretty in line, even low frequency calling with ace-king sometimes. So I don't think he's like stepping far outside of just sort of standard frequencies here. My hand has a blocker, but besides that, it doesn't really have a whole lot of value. I guess the only move here would be to go all in, so the blocker's probably more important, but suited would be still substantially better to go with, and I still think even suited this hand would be stepping pretty far out of line even with these positions. I'm just gonna fold, even though, you know, I want to go for it, but I'm just gonna fold.
Yeah, so he chose a really good 4-bet size for a very small. But it's not quote unquote that small, but you're deep enough to where going bigger, like 500, would be a pretty big mistake in my opinion. Just because you're repping a very strong range and you don't need to put that much money in. Because if I do call, the stack to pot's already going to be very low, to where you're not going to have a problem getting all the money in post flop anyways. So yeah, we have a very easy 3-bet versus his range and fold versus a cold 4. I would call if it was suited, and yeah, he's gonna take it.
Boo. Boo.
Yeah.
I wanted to jam so bad.
It is the most expensive way I could ever learn how to play poker because I'm really weird where I don't actually study off the felt, and I study by experimenting on the table, which can be very costly. So if I make like a mistake, like I'm certainly going to learn it immediately because the monetary amount hurts if that doesn't go through. You know, if I 4-bet 6-5 suited and they rip it into me or something, like that's a lot of money to just like, all right, now I know next time. But yeah, I felt like that was a decent spot. I don't know, kind of a feel thing and kind of like a let's just see how it goes. Close my eyes. Sometimes you have to do that in poker. Just close my eyes and hope for the best. And that time it worked out.
All right, we're gonna listen. A lot of these are just barely on the edge for under the gun, but we didn't fly all the way to Las Vegas to fold this hand. Looks too pretty. $30.
30.
Easy fold here when Johnny opens in the low jack. We could obviously consider it if button open, but I just think it's going to be too bad in this position.
Almost gave info away there.
Hey, that was a tell, man.
Huh?
You started to move the
Well,
button
she
before.
tried to trick me. She's like, well, I can think about it. I was like, fuck.
Once he starts to move the button, you're like, well, now I can't think about playing it because it looks too obvious that I was
Her
not
first
supposed to
words
fold.
were, I just have a fold here. And then she said, well, I can think about it. I was like, fuck.
I said I could think about it if Landon opened. Yeah.
Pretty easy open, and we're gonna defend versus any 3-bet because I'm trying to play some fucking hands.
30.
Yeah, so I don't really know what the correct move to do here with this hand is. Suited probably makes more sense to 3-bet sometimes, but now that we're offsuit in position, I think like the main thing is trying to make my life easy, and I feel like calling might be the right move, but I'm not confident in myself playing this post, so we're just gonna fold.
All right, so I'm gonna 3-bet here. I'm not thrilled about ISOing it Landon because I think he's gonna play a pretty solid post. But I am still going to 3-bet this.
130.
So yeah, this is a hand that wants to see 3 cards for, and getting 5-bet would be quite a disaster. So hands like these fit really nicely into opens and then calls, because you're not really gaining very much besides bloating a pot with really bad blockers, because when we have cards like this in our hand, it's more likely she has broadways that are 3-betting us and just like better pairs. So we're basically just trying to see a flop in position to where we're going to be able to play post flop pretty comfortably depending on how the board runs out. 130.
I'm going to proceed with a check on this very wet board texture, and probably check call flop.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are about a couple hundred big blinds deep here. So her check makes a lot of sense. She wants to remain uncapped, as well as has hands that she doesn't want to just blindly bet for a small size, because we are deeper and I do connect pretty well. She obviously connects better having aces, where I'm never going to have aces here. I'm always going to 4-bet. And our hand here is super nice because we get to continue and definitely see a turn. And we also get to pressure her entire range for going for a small size. So there's like 300 in the pot. We're just going to go for a 1/3 stab and call versus any raise.
100.
So I especially like the check because Landon's flatted ace king twice to 3-bet, so he's definitely not very 4-bet happy, and so I think definitely gonna have some strong hands. Definitely gonna check call with drawing to the nuts, especially for that sizing. But I'm not thrilled about the situation.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a turn where our specific hand, once again, we don't necessarily have showdown value. Obviously, when she calls, we never win with our hand, but there's so many good river cards, and she still has hands that she's going to check call the flop and then check fold the turn with, as well as if we do face a raise, it's most likely not going to be for an all-in sizing, so we don't have to worry about bet folding this much equity. So in this spot, after the 3-bet to 160 and the call is like 275, so like 475 in the pot. I'm gonna go for one of those sizes where it looks like I have ace 10, pocket 6s and pocket 10s, which would be a pretty big size. And we're gonna bet roughly 2/3 of the pot, so we're gonna go like 325 here.
325.
Okay, so I can't call, obviously. I think it's a decent hand to consider check raising. I do block some of his best aces, and I do not have a heart, which I think is good. But I still think I'm gonna fold. I mean, I just think I have better hands to use, so I'm gonna let it go.
No. God damn it.
I was getting there, it's fine.
I was gonna check for his turn.
I was saying, please don't jam on me. That's the only way that I have a problem.
Fuck. Fuck.
This fucking kid.
Sickest turn in the game. Me and this guy.
That was 6 hours of you playing nitty for that right there. Right?
Set it
I
up.
literally said this would be a decent hand.
Yeah, this is a hand that we're gonna open from the cutoff. Just standard 30.
30?
So I think we have an interesting option here between raise and 3-bet. But at this depth, I think I'm gonna flat in the big blind. If we were deeper, I would probably start to consider 3-betting here instead. But here I'm just gonna call.
Pretty good board for my hand here. I'm gonna just continually assume big blind calling range is gonna be much wider here. And this board is pretty good for me. I am holding the ace of diamonds, so we don't have to size up super large, but with 60 in there, just go for value, and we'll just go 40 probably.
40.
All right, so we find ourselves pretty squarely in the middle of our range. Quite a bit of showdown value, some backdoors, but no real reason to do anything other than call here, I think. So we're gonna peel into the sides and start deciding on turns.
Check.
Like I was saying, I think turn here is going to be good for action, I think. Still definitely not going to be thinking I'm behind, although some two-pair combos come in, they seem pretty rare. I think now we can get a lot of value from 8-7, maybe some one-pair queens, but I kind of want to overbet here. It's another thing I'm trying to experiment with. Like, I'm not really 100% on all of my decisions, but right now I'm feeling like an overbet would really work well to get value and size up on this turn. I mean, certainly there's just so many draws out there, and although I do block the ace of diamonds, I do have the ace of diamonds, still think we can get a lot of value and trying to size up on this pot. So 140 in the middle, we'll probably go 175.
175.
So interesting sizing choice by him here, sizing a little bit up on flop and now overbetting turn. This is one of those cards though where we just pick up way too much equity to really ever fold. We block the nuts. For the most part, we don't block any draws other than like specifically open-ended. And there's plenty of like draw and combo draw type holdings. I also don't really know how balanced Ethan is here, but we just have a hand with too much equity to really care how balanced he is per se, since we can't really know that. It is going to be a little tricky on rivers. We may just end up call folding a lot of rivers, but right now we still just have too much equity to release. And occasionally we'll get to showdown and just have the best hand as well. So we're going to be calling here. So this is one of those cards that I think we could actually consider leading sometimes, but I think that I would probably not choose a hand with this level of showdown value, and I would probably try to choose hands that have a diamond in them, and ideally a jack or a 9 rather than a 7 now because of all the higher straights that are now available. I think there's like a pretty non-zero chance we get blasted off here, but I don't think leading is a good option, so I'm going to check.
All right, so I'm really happy to see a check back from him. Initial thoughts, this is just a really unfortunate gross river that we can't get much value from. I was hoping to see some brick card, but here we just, too many combos beat us now when we're sitting with one pair. That's why we sized up on the turn, because I think we could only take this hand to 2 streets. 3 streets would be really ambitious if we're just targeting hands like king, queen, and queen, jack exactly. Betting just seems super thin, and there's no real sizing if we're only targeting those hands, so easy check back and hope that we're good.